Hey guys, we're gonna do a belt, just simple belt replacement, go over a few things, go over some tools. Casey here is gonna take it apart. We're gonna watch him take it apart, and I'm gonna explain to him what to do, as well as kind of go over what needs to be done and what you should be doing. Obviously, if you have a stock Polaris toolkit, you probably should throw that in the trash can and go and, even if you go to Harbor Freight or whatever, inexpensive tools that you can throw in your razor that make all the world. Casey, go ahead and take the bolts. We're gonna take the cover off. Obviously, this thing's got a blowhole. So we're gonna take the blowhole out. We're gonna take the cover off. We'll get into it and go from there. Yeah, on that cover, the bolts don't fall out, so they're there, which is great. You're in the sand dunes and you blow a belt, and you don't have to worry about all the bolts falling out and going on the ground like us guys in our Terra OSs, where the bolts, there's nothing to hold them in. Kudos to the Polaris engineers that actually did it right this time. And one thing we talk about all the time, if you haven't taken your belt off, or you've experienced this, but I would suggest going down to the hardware store or going into your toolbox, whatever, get a 1/4 20 tap, or I like using these self-tap bolts that we get them in the skid plate kits. So the great thing about that is that you can, pre-run this in there. And what I'm saying is that the holes that are in your secondary clutch that the clutch tool goes into, most of the time they're not. I'm not sure if Polaris if they're just cast by the manufacturer, but they're always, it seems like they're always burred up, or they don't just go nice and smooth. So I would say, if you've never done this, do this at home. If you're doing it on the trail for the first time, make darn sure that you take and grease your clutch tool. But I would run something in there prior. I said, this is one of those things that you're doing on a Sunday afternoon, and you got a beer in your hand, and you were like, hey, I just want to make sure all my stuff's good to go, and pull that cover off, check your belt, check your, look at everything, and then run something in that clutch to where you can fix that. I know that I've seen a couple of videos where the guy says, hey, worst case scenario, you can take the long screw out of your fender. Well, in an absolute worst case scenario, that would work, but it is a 6mm 100, which it's definitely not the thread, but if you had to, you could jam it in there and you could make it work. I wouldn't suggest it, because you could screw it up. I mean, it will work. I've seen guys do it, in a jam, but on this one, where it's a matter of, put some anti-seize or put some grease or put something on here, something that you can do that, and then. But it's not a bad thing to, like I say, on a weekend with your buddies and everybody's prepping their stuff for the next ride. Get in there, look at the belt, take the belt off, get acquainted with everything, making sure that you have the right tools to take that belt off if you're on the side of the road or on the side of the trail. So, quarter drive works wonders. Not very many people are going to carry a power tool, but at least as long as you got a quarter drive, you got the correct ratchet for it. And the correct tool is just to take that belt off. Inspect that belt, look at the belt real close, make sure there's no hot spots on it, make sure it's not hourglassed anywhere. It's really, make sure you always have a spare belt. No matter whether we're snowmobiling or we're jeeping or where we're UTVing, it's make sure you have the right tools and the right parts to get you off the trail. What's gonna break, what could break? Obviously you're not gonna carry, chase truck full of tools and stuff, but there's those little dumb things that do break. There's those things that do fail. You need to have them with you so that you can at least get off the trail. Well, your buddies, at least, we run, I run with a spare tire. I run with all of our recovery equipment. Spencer's got all of the tools and stuff and he's got all of his impacts and stuff. So at least somebody in your caravan of buddies make sure that somebody's got the stuff to get you out of there. If you want to see other belt tips or removal videos, there is a trail recovery video that's out. Give that a shot. Look it up. Lots of information. And I tell people, YouTube's a plethora of information. If you're sitting around doing nothing, it's not a bad thing to scroll through people's videos and kind of see how they did it. They may do something different than I've ever done, and you're always learning something from somebody. But Casey will get this back on there, everything like that. He showed that belt tool coming back out of there. And like I say, it's one of those things. Make sure that that hole is clean, because I don't know how many times I've come in where the guy's like, yeah, I blew a belt, I used a stock tool, it's never been done, and they're trying to extract a broken clutch tool coming out of that secondary. Not a good idea. And then once he pulls that tool out of there, gets it all there, he's going to give it a couple rotations and make sure that's kind of the secondary is collapsing, and then he can put it all back together and we can get the heck out of here. You know, most guys check your deflection at this time. Sometimes when you're putting a brand new belt on or you're putting a buddy's used belt on there, you know, deflection it's not real critical to get you off the trail, but it is definitely a critical thing to look at. Make sure that it's operating properly.